tested for a couple of things, and I remember some casting woman said to me, look, that I just wasn't going to make it in television, that I was too intense, and she said I wasn't good looking enough, and that I said, well, so they shipped me back to New York at that point, you know. And then I auditioned for a picture called Taps. Taps.
But I thought Risky Business was your first.
No. Risky Business was the first film that I had the lead role in. But I was actually cast in Taps as, you know, I had 2 lines in the movie. Harold Becker was directing, Stanley Jaffe, who was just coming off Kramer versus Kramer. And, you know, George C. Scott, Tim Hutton won the Academy Award for Ordinary People in this Sean Penn's first film. And we had a month of rehearsals and boot camp. And they changed the role, and I was offered this bigger role. Harold offered it to me. I guess I was 18 when I did Taps. And I remember being, I couldn't sleep at night. I was both very excited and very concerned that I might get fired. You know, when you dream about something and then it's coming true, you can't believe it. And there's this sense of, well, if this is the only chance I have doing this, I want to make sure that I enjoy every moment of it. When I was doing Taps, I went to every department and just studied what each department did.
Really?
You know? Yeah, just to see how a film is put together and how stories are put together. I remember laying in bed thinking, you know what?
This is so cool.
If I never get to make another one, at least I got to make one.
What was the one that had a profoundly different Tom that went into it that came out the other side?
You know, the first film I made, Taps, because I wanted to make movies my whole life. And to have that opportunity and to start out, I went to every single department and studied every aspect of filmmaking.
In honor of this auspicious occasion, Major Moreland, your presence is requested in the hallway.
It was a very formative and unique experience for me because, of course, I'd never been on a movie set really. I just one day with Endless Love, but I was learning all about cameras and lighting. You know, I go and also script and how movies are made. You had George C. Scott, Sean Penn, and you had Harold Becker who directed it, and we'd spent over a month preparing the film. They had brought us all down as young actors. I was 18.
Wow, that's an incredible acceleration in your career from, like, I mean, a few years out of high school to suddenly doing that.
Not even a few years, it was months. It was months.
Jeez, I'd give my right nut for those Oakleys.
But I remember there was a day that I showed up where in the morning I thought, you know, my character, I want a shaved head. So I went into town, I just shaved my head, and I showed up to Harold, you know, Mr. Becker, and I said, you know, Mr. Becker, you know, I took my head off, and he was like, you know, what did you do? What did you do? I was like, what do you mean? You know,
I'm getting into character.
This is my character. I feel this is my character.
Yeah.
It's like, and he panicked, and for about an hour he was really panicked.
It was a big mistake, Brian, if you don't want me saying so.
And he was going to try to, you know, should I get a wig? You know, what's happening? And then he realized, he's like, no, this actually worked. This worked. And then he really was very generous with me and would bring me in. And, you know, we used to have a thing called rushes, and every day we'd look at the films from the day before. And it was a real privilege to be invited in to see the rushes. And actors generally weren't, especially young actors. But he knew of my interest in film, and he basically cut together edits of scenes, not just of my scenes, but of other actors, so that I could watch and just really kind of say, these are the takes that are going to be in the movie. And so, you know, I was lucky. People were very generous with me.
Do you remember what your goal was starting out in your filmmaking career versus what your goals are now? Same goals, different goals? Did they change along the way?
It's a very interesting question because I've thought about that. And I remember I was making Taps, and there I'm on set with these guys, and I thought, I said, if I don't ever get to make another film again, I just want to see how it's, and I went to every single department and really studied and asked a gazillion questions. And I remember sitting there and thought, if I could do this the rest of my life, I'd be so grateful. The first film that I really got on, which was Taps, I went to every single department and I studied every part of the movie. I went to the camera department, I studied lenses, lighting. You know, I was working with a great cinematographer, Oren Roisman. I studied what producers do, what writers do, what wardrobe does, what the stunt department does, with props, sound. I studied every aspect of films, and that.
Hey Brian, Dungeons and Dragons game today? Not tonight, Sean. I should ask.
Suddenly I'm making Taps. And I realized, like, this is happening. I'm on a movie set for the first time. I'm 18 years old. And it was really my second film audition, and I got the role, very small role. And I just thought I never went to film school, but I knew movies as a kid. So I knew who Owen Royceman was, I knew who Stanley Jaffe was, Harold Becker. Obviously we were working with Timothy Hutton and that incredible performance, Ordinary People, at the time. And what I did was I went to every single department and I studied every single department. Because I thought if I never get to make another movie again, I want to understand what it is. And I remember on Taps, I was laying there in bed, and I mean really everyone knows you have a dream. And we all dream about what we want or what we want our lives to be. Well, this is my dream, this is my passion. And suddenly I'm on Taps. And here's George C. Scott, and I'm sitting across from Patton, you know, and I'm playing chess with him. And we're talking about movies, and he's telling me about Dr. Strangelove. And all I wanted to hear was like, not just didn't want to hear the gossip, but to be able to watch them work, and then to be able to see how it translates to cinema, to understand why do things affect me in a particular way. And I just thought when I was doing Taps, I said, please, if I could just do this the rest of my life, I will never take it for granted.